Oh hey, it's Wes, and today it's time to talk about the Godox SL100D. Let's get started, as always, with the categories and the build quality. The 100D is a little bit different from our usual Godox lights that we've seen. We have the ML60, which is a compact little metal wrapped body, and we have the massive SL or FV150 and 200 line, big round lights. Got vents in the top, vents in the bottom. Oh boy. This light here, though, looks very different. Looks a bit more like their older lights. No vents in the top. Tiny amount of vents on the bottom. The middle of the frame is metal. The stand bracket itself, though, is plastic, but it is very thick, feels very robust. The back, plastic. The front, you have some plastic, and then you have metal for the Bowens ring, which is nice. So this isn't as small as the ML series, and it's only marginally more powerful. So what are we getting in this sort of package? Well, as you can see, for one of the big differences is it's running on AC power instead of an adapter. This could have a plus or a minus depending on your workflow. I do prefer it this way because we don't have any dirty danglers and the wire is more robust. But I have to mention something about that. Look at the size of this AC power cable. If we have a look at the cable itself, we have 16 AWG. That's not the thickest that you can get, but this wire is very thick. And that has its ups and downs because, well, this light only draws about 100 watts. This wire is rated for over 1,000 watts. It is massive. Why do we have wires like this? Now, I actually do know why we have wires like this. If you have this particular connector on the end, you're expected to have a wire that can supply a full amount of power, because if I suddenly take this and plug it into a gaming computer, we need a wire that's not going to melt itself down. So using wires like this is a little bit inconvenient when it comes to lights like this. In some ways it would be easier if it just used a standard figure 8 wire without a ground, but I know there are ups and downs to that sort of thing too. Let's plug it in. So over time, this wire is much less likely to break down as opposed to the little DC power wires that come into a lot of these other lights, such as the ML60. So this is a nice, robust design. Front cap that goes on it, though, is the most generic cap that you can get, and honestly, it is bigger than it needs to be. As you can see where this goes in, it just slides in like that. So it's only using half the cap, which I'm not terribly fond of because then it takes up more space in the bag than necessary. If we look at this FV150, the cap that comes with it is exactly the size that it needs to be. It's clearly made for this. Now, there's a reason that we're getting that sort of a trade-off, obviously, because this is more of a budget-minded product, whereas the FV150 is a little more middle of the road. Overall, this does ultimately feel a little more solid than I expected it to for a budget light. Some pretty thick plastic, some pretty thick metal. Overall, not too bad. I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10 for build quality. Feature set. We do have Bluetooth connectivity. We've got wireless groupings that you can use with the Godox remotes. We have just a fixed 5600K color balance. And a great feature, honestly one of my favorite features for any light like this, built-in Bowens mount. Makes it very versatile. You've got an umbrella holder underneath, so you can stick an umbrella on that, easy peasy. Boop, right there. There is no way to put an external battery on this because this is a direct AC connection. You need a DC connection to be able to do that. So that's a bit disappointing. I really like these new lights that have the ability to mount a battery right on the side of it. Super convenient, especially when the light is just 100 watts or less. In the Godox app, it's just a little more complicated than it needs to be. I'm going to my studio, we've got this light on. As it is the case in most of these lighting apps for some reason, it still thinks that I can adjust the white balance. I can't adjust the tint, but I can adjust the brightness. Now at 1%, this gets pretty dark, but not as dark as the Sony X60. One of the things that I love about this light is that when you turn it all the way down to 1%, it is incredibly dim. The SL100 at 1% is quite a bit brighter. Not insane though. There are other lights such as the Ninja 200 and 300. When it's at 1%, it is still blinding. So you have a decent power range, but not complete. And the app, once you figure out how to use it, isn't too bad. So you have your basic controls there. We'll go up to the top, go into effects. Let's have a look at the effects here. Overall, not a big fan of the effects. They're very jumpy. There's not much, let's say, nuance to them. It just kind of pops up and down. And being that there's only one color to this light, there can't be that versatile to begin with. The fans are quite quiet. And most of the sound comes out of the front and the back, and not the sides. Why is that important? Well, if you put a light modifier in the front, that's going to baffle a lot of the noise coming out there. I can feel the air being pushed out the front. And in the back, it's where it's sucking in air, that's pointing away from you. So if I was using this for video, most of the sound would be baffled by that, or going the other way. So it's not the quietest fan in the world. So overall, it's pretty well featured. You've got the app control, you've got the remote control, you've got the Bowens mount, almost everything that you could want. I'm gonna give that an 8 out of 10. Light quality. This is where this thing excels in its class. We have a CRI of 96, a TLCI of 97. That is solid. It's not the best of the best, but in this price range, it's the best you're going to get. So that's fantastic. We've got 100 watts of power, and it's super easy to adapt with a Bowens mount to make any sort of light that you want. So I'm gonna give that a 9 out of 10 for light quality. Fantastic. Usability. One thing that got me a few times with this, if you put a light modifier on here, it's possible to turn it the wrong way. And then it gets lost in the Bowens mount, which is pretty annoying. So it's like wandering around in there. The stop just isn't in the right place. And so you can lock it in the right way, but if you unlock it, you can turn it too far and then you're stuck. It kind of, but great for usability. Got the Bowens mount, as I said before. Bluetooth app works pretty well. Even if the app isn't the best or the simplest, you have a reasonably bright and easy to read screen. It has the black background, which has its ups and downs, so for off-angle viewing, it is actually strangely good. But if you're in a very bright situation, you can get a lot of glare on the screen that makes it hard to see. The light stand foot is one of those ones with hard stops, which has its ups and downs. It locks down really well, but I'm kind of over this clickety-clackety thing. So what are we missing? We're missing battery functionality and any sort of modifying the color of the light. It is decently usable, very simple design, but as a lower powered light without battery functionality, I'm gonna give that an 8 out of 10 for usability. For the most part, it's just dead simple. Value, that's where we expect the SL series to do well. It is kind of the cheapest large amount of light that Godox can make. So let's see how it does. This one comes in at 180 bucks. Let's compare that. You got the Sony X60 V2, that is $170, just a little bit cheaper. Tiny bit less light though. A lot smaller, also has a Bowens mount though. We have the Godox, well, the VL and FV150, they come in around $400, 50% more light for a lot more money and a lot more package. And Godox has that ML60. You have 75% of the light, $270. It costs almost $100 more for less light. You're paying for compactness, that is for sure. And then you have the Ninja 300 Pow, 170 bucks. Can be run on batteries. So this is a good value for a solid light, but not the best. Gotta give that a 9 out of 10. So overall, this gives us a total of 42 out of 50. This is a solid light. If you need a certain amount of light and a Bowens mount, this one, it is an easy sell. If you don't need it to be the most compact thing in the world, you just want to set it up in the studio, this is the obvious choice. This also comes in a bi-colored version for a little bit more money. And honestly, that's a fantastic deal. It's amazing that we can now get the highest quality or near highest quality light in a very cheap form factor. You might expect it to be less reliable or something, but honestly, I've not found that to be the case. The only concern that I have is that it feeds the hot air back out the front of the light. And so with a light modifier on that, it does get quite hot. In interests of scientific research, I put a light modifier on this and ran it for 8 hours straight at 100% output. And I mean, nothing went wrong. It just got really hot. So take that as you will. If you have any questions or comments about this, the SL100, let me know down in the comments below and I'll get back to you. But until next time, let's go take some photos.